It's Saturday afternoon and it's raining. What do I do? You know I've always been such an outdoorsy guy, right? This gloomy weather has ruined my weekend.
Not so fast, Donald. I have just the thing to cheer you up and entertain you through this storm.
Whoa, are those action figures? Are we kids in this scenario?
Apparently. I didn't write this ad.
Huh. You really have to suspend a lot of disbelief for this ad so far, and we're only a couple lines in. Those action figures are cool, though. Oh, I don't recognize any of the characters. Are these like those bootleg knockoffs or something? Like Metal Hero or Justice Man?
No, these are blank slates. Or at least categorized blank slates.
What does that mean?
These action figures aren't tied down to intellectual properties or franchises. These represent classic character archetypes of fiction, allowing writers to flex their creative muscles and play with these figures while coming up with character ideas for their stories. Like our prized action hero figure, who uses indeterminable weapons to vanquish his enemies along with kung fu grip. Or our romance hero action figure, who uses his dashing looks and custom-made backstory to woo all the ladies, along with a kung fu grip.
Wow, that's all really cool! I could use these action figures in every scenario, and maybe even use the characters I come up with for them in my stories.
This action figure line encourages writers to do just that!
Wait, do they have animals? Like dinosaurs?
The company is working on an expansion pack, so maybe you'll get your beloved Scalies soon. In the meantime, try our wacky sidekick action figure with player-made jokes and other hijinks, our hammy villain figure with his evil laugh and his customizable number of customizable minions, or our aloof mentor with his staff of indeterminacy to guide the hero. That last one also comes with a die switch to properly motivate the hero and force him to truly learn his lessons. Also, each action figure can be customized to become any gender. How? Well, this is a family-friendly podcast advertisement, so I'll just let you figure it out.
This all sounds great! I'll definitely get some of these for my display wall. I mean, I'm already a huge dork as it is, so why not go further and decorate my room with action figures?
Why not indeed? Try these stock character action figures, available online or wherever third-party action figures are sold. Or at least fourth or fifth party. Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Ritwit, the show that's finally found its one claim to lesser fame than our listeners, being too obsessive in our fandoms.
I mean, have you seen my shelf? There's so many action figures and like, even not just the stock character ones, but also just like Bionicle stuff and like toy dinosaurs.
Okay, I should probably clarify. When I say obsessive, I mean like you're literally willing to physically attack people for their opposite views. Yeah, we're not that obsessive.
Hey, David, what is your opinion on the movie Clueless?
The movie Clueless. I cannot stand how girly that movie is.
How dare you! I'm gonna kill...
One of the very few and proud men who liked that movie that I know.
I love that
there
movie.
There are probably more that I don't. But
I love
anyway.
that movie. Oh, as if.
I remember you tried showing that movie to me, and I laughed.
10 minutes! That's how far we got. You just can't seem to embrace your feminine side. I mean, that's probably not the reason.
There are times that I can embrace my feminine side. I am notoriously easy to start watery eyes, but like it's just that movie. Ugh.
Oh, as if.
As if.
Was it like one of my favorite quotes is like when she says that when she has to defend that she's a virgin, she's like, "You see how picky I am about my shoes, and they only go on my feet."
I don't think I made that scene.
Yeah, that's like an hour in, so it'd be a miracle if you'd still be alive if I tried to show it to you again.
Well, I mean, you force somebody to take a pill a bunch of times. Eventually, they do what you want.
Yes, get you on enough stress relievers, get you some marijuana to ease yourself.
Okay, let's not endorse that kind of stuff on the show.
Anyways, this is not the Clueless episode.
No, this is not.
I mean, I guess to be fair, every episode is our Clueless episode in a way. But
well,
because we're always clueless.
But we are somehow better than you. Except
somehow.
not about being too obsessive in our fandoms.
Yes.
That said, though, we are in the middle of our fan fiction set, and we've talked
By
about
middle, you mean end, but yes.
continuation stuffs. We talked about using your own original characters, and last time we talked about crossovers.
Yeah,
so
that was
now
fun.
we're getting to the one that, to a certain demographic, these are the only fics worth writing about at all, because obviously...
Oh, these are fun. I love these, and people fight over these. Like, no, not those characters. I want these characters.
Sorry, I'm waiting for the town chime.
Hi, town chime. Oh yeah, it's noon there, isn't it? It's kind of cool. It's see, because as listeners might know, we record over Skype because you're in Japan. Although you're coming back next year, so that'll make it a lot easier. But so it is 9 p.m. where I am right now, which makes it noon over where he is, because he is 15 hours ahead. It's amazing we make this work, isn't it, David?
It is amazing. I just figured you weren't going to say anything and just let that be edited out.
No, I think it's fun to give our listeners some nice little.
Well,
insight,
I don't know. Did you even hear the chime? Like, I'm sure
I did. So I'm assuming that's going to be in the.
Yeah, it's in my recording.
In your recording.
Anyway,
so
I
don't know. I think
anyways,
it's
I was going to wait because I was going to continue this description and get us straight into the topic today
all right,
without any
all right,
more
well, then
dawdling about Clueless.
Go.
Portmanteau names, Mary Sue types with your favorite characters, dream casting, reading way too far between the lines. This is the realm of the ship fic.
Ship fix, yeah! Or should I say, oh boy.
Oh my. We'll start with an easy question. Is there ever a thing as quote-unquote unshippable?
Nope! I have seen the craziest and most imaginative ships. Loki and Darcy Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Voldemort and Pikachu.
Oh, boy.
Jack Sparrow and his compass.
What? Okay.
Deadpool and Pinkie Pie.
No, I'm sorry. It can't be his compass. It has to be the bottle of rum that he drank.
Oh, God. Oh, and I can see how that would work, too, physically.
Exactly.
Oh!
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Deadpool and Pinkie Pie, which also kind of makes sense, as we'll get to later, but...
Wait, Pinkie Pie? What's Pinkie Pie from?
She's from My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic.
Okay. The show that I have never seen, but you are obviously what I believe call brony.
I'm not a brony. I am knowledgeable about it, but...
Oh, so there's a difference. Okay.
I like to keep up to date with the stuff that is in, even though I'm not a fan. Like Game of Thrones, I was never into Game of Thrones, but I knew some about Game of Thrones. I knew some of the characters. I knew what was going on, but...
And this is weird, because pop culture phenomena with me, I'm always late to the party.
Right.
Always. Like if I really care about it, I'm discovering it after the fact.
You might start watching Game of Thrones in, 2032.
Maybe, who knows? Once the saga of Fire and Ice is done and I've actually read the books, to be really
by
mad
that
about
point,
how the
he's
last
finally
season ended, right?
finished the books, right, yeah.
Lord willing, and he makes it to the end of that lifespan, but let's not wish death
Right.
upon anybody.
Anyway, so all these different ships.
Yeah, I mean, these ships. Oh, by the way, one thing to clarify, the word is relationship. We're shortening it for purposes.
That's usually what they're
people
called,
usually call
shipping
it.
fics. But yeah, just in case anyone knows, ship is short for relationship.
Relationship. So the relationship is sinking, or not, but here we go. You go ahead.
But there's a lot of ship-to-ship combat. Or
oh, jeez.
And if there's a ship that's oh wait, it's people really shipped Luke and Leia until Return of the Jedi showed their brother and sister, and then the ship sank.
I was about to say, you sank their battleship. Or was it their
Yeah, no, I like all these
cruiser?
puns with and if you like one ship and you decide to do another, you're jumping ship.
Oh, jeez. You might as well use the terminology to its fullest extent. I particularly love this kind of humor.
All these ships, especially the Voldemort Pikachu one, which I guess, they both shoot lightning. So I guess they make sense.
They both rain death or fainting upon their enemies.
Do these ships make sense? No.
Heck no.
Do they work? No. But what the hell? They're fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's worth shipping two people purely because of the ship name, which, isn't always a portmanteau. Like, my absolute favorite ship name is a threesome ship of Iron Man / Tony Stark, Captain America / Steve Rogers, and Hulk / Bruce Banner. You ready for it?
Oh, dear gosh. What's this thing going to be?
Stark Spangled Banner.
Oh, my goodness.
Brilliant.
That is so clever.
Brilliant,
I don't know
say.
how in the world I never heard it before. Like, that is amazing.
It's brilliant.
It is really cool. And that gets into something else about, ships aren't just exclusively between two people either.
Yeah, polyamorous relationships
you and your reflection.
Right, exactly.
And then all the reflections in the mirror chamber you're in. But anyway.
Right. So no, basically, no, there's nothing the readers can't ship. I mean, hell, I kind of ship Cortan / Navissa from my own stories, Megazoic, buy on Amazon.com. Which makes me what I'd call a Corvissa shipper.
Those portmanteaus, man.
Yep. While you are a huge
I don't like
Swinky
that
shipper.
ship, though. I like a different ship. It's the ship between Swat and Blinky, as he refers to it, the Swinky shipper, which I just wish that was half as cool as the word that sounds great, which is swanky. I am not a swanky shipper. I
guess swanky could work because the SWA. So
yeah, and then you get
SWAT.
like half and half. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Actually, that makes more sense. Swanky makes more sense. Okay, it's officially called the Swanky shipping.
Ship.
Okay, I'm gonna actually edit the document here, even though no one cares and no one can see it. But I'm gonna edit our little note document here. You are a swanky shipper now.
I am a swanky shipper. I honestly, now that it's swanky as opposed to just swinky, I actually kind of take pride in being called swanky.
You're swanky, yeah.
So swanky. Anyway,
get those swanky moves.
Yes, but
anyways, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, there probably is not such a thing as unshippable if they exist in the same universe and or have means of coming together.
Right.
In that event, as Donald said, there's not really a limit. There's no numerical limit to how many entities are in a ship.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying that, here's a rule of thumb. If it hasn't been shipped in some fiction or on some social site, it's only a matter of time.
It's kind of like Rule 34. Maybe it's more like Rule 35.
No. Rule 35 is it will be made.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
if you don't know Rule 34, kids, don't look it up.
If it exists, there must be
anyway,
beep of it.
It must be. Sure. That said, I believe that just like real life, it has far more chance of not working out than it does of working.
Right. I mean, that makes sense.
All those passionate fans of the relationship you chose to focus on are equaled, if not bettered, in number by those who want the exact opposite potential choice.
Right.
Or, one of several potential opposites. Like shipping Black Widow with any of the Avengers, not just the one that the movie chose.
People have done like crazy. It's kind of funny. The one that they shipped Black Widow with the least, Bruce Banner, was the one that she eventually ended up with, even briefly.
Well, okay, and I'm gonna talk about this later on as well again, but just to briefly mention it here, if it's chosen by the main creator, then that's probably the best ship, theoretically.
Right.
Because that's the one that they endorse. I'll get more into that in a little bit. But anyways, these are purely distilled fan fictions. Personal preference above all else, and everything else is out the window. Seeing evidence where there isn't any to be had.
Oh, these two characters, they shared one scene with each other, so they
had this one. Yeah, I was gonna say they had this one.
Granted, there were also like 50 other characters in that scene, but these two, they were.
Yeah, this chance encounter that they had in one scene with a bunch of other people in the same room is suddenly the spark for this one creator to make the fan fiction they are shipped together. Like, seriously? That's the only interaction they have across the entire series, and that's gonna be enough for you?
I mean, like that Loki / Darcy Lewis stuff I mentioned, even though they're both in the same movies, as far as I recall, they have zero interactions.
That, I believe so. I can't remember clearly
to
say right now, but, having evidence is kind of, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's kind of secondary for people writing these fictions. They are very prominent. Honestly, I mentioned somewhere that, like, what is it, 75% of writers or whatever I said about, they stay in the continuation stories place.
Right.
Because they're working with previously established properties.
Right.
Obviously, these are working with previously established properties, and I'd say that a large hunk of those, whatever percent I said, are primarily in the ship business. So...
Right, exactly. All right.
Anyway, with the easy stuff out of the way, how about some harder, quote-unquote, analysis?
Right.
What are the limitations of doing a ship? How can you make that particular relationship to be not only conceivable, but also appreciated by a wider swath of fans?
I mean, personally, I'm a huge shipper of just those far out, a huge supporter of far out ships.
You really sank your battleship, didn't you?
Oh,
it's the biggest one in your fleet.
Yeah, but it's nothing compared to my carrier.
That's true. The aircraft carrier was the biggest. Sorry, random reference.
No worries. Well, don't sink it, as far as I know, and also keep up.
I haven't guessed J7 yet, so shut it.
Oh no, not J7. That's where my submarine is. Anyways, I'm a huge supporter of far out ships. Ones the readers would likely least expect, but they still kind of make sense in a weird way. Like, what about the magic carpet from Aladdin and Doctor Strange's cape?
That seems like really obvious. They're both fabric and usually used by
They're both sentient fabric, yeah. This might be too obvious. So how about that earlier Deadpool / Pinkie Pie one that I mentioned earlier? That if you know their characters, which I do, even though I'm not a brony, I swear. I know things, okay?
Sounds like somebody has problems with acceptance.
It makes a ton of sense. Like, they're both reality warping jokesters with a tendency to break the fourth wall. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that... Well, and I don't know Pinkie Pie, but that does sound very fitting for Deadpool's character.
Right.
Like, one thing earlier mentioned that, if they have a means of coming together, but you're touching on the factor they have in common.
Right.
So that's not the carpet cape one is not terribly far out because it's pretty easy to see that common thread. Some you have to work a lot harder.
They'd cuddle with each other. It'd be beautiful. They'd wrap around each other.
It'd be a beautiful mess above the whole new world that they're trying to see inside the time stone. I'm kidding. Anyway.
The magic carpet's like, I can show you a whole new world. The cape is like, world? I
can show you all of time.
Well, also, I can traverse dimensions. So...
Golly, who wears the pants in that family?
I don't know.
Sorry, random joke.
Anyways, okay, here's a far out one that I actually thought about. It makes a kind of sense. The Dark Lord Sauron and the Cheshire Cat.
Oh, wow, okay, that seems out of left field.
They're both powerful spirit creatures on the sinister side, but one likes order, his order in particular, while one likes chaos. While one is seen as just a glowing eye, while the other is seen as a glowing grin.
Okay. Yeah.
It kind of... I don't know. Basically, I'm just using that...
Okay, can I just say that compared to what some people use as impetus for a ship, that actually is fairly decent.
Yeah, I'm just using as, you can have two characters that seem like they're completely different, but you find some common thread, and then it makes it work. I love those kind of ships. Because, where did you come up with that? But that also makes sense.
Maybe it's the 6 degrees of separation kind of a thing. But, it can work. Like I mentioned in our crossover stuff last week, the Barbie Transformers. So what if Optimus Prime fell in love for the Barbie doll? I don't know.
Well, as he would say, freedom is the right of all sentient beings, including Barbies.
Yeah, sentient.
What's another?
Okay. Well, in movie form, I give you sentient. But when they're a doll in a young girl's hands, or maybe young boys if they're into that.
I mean, yeah, it's 2019.
Well, it's probably the kids' sentience as opposed to the dolls.
I played with Barbies when I was a kid, so I could play with my sisters. So.
Now, I was about to say, you had 3 sisters. There's somewhat, I would call them, extenuating circumstances there.
Right. Basically, go nuts, shippers, is what I say. Whatever common ground you can find between two characters, use it and ship the hell out of them. Or maybe have two characters that are total opposites to, complete each other.
That is Well, I mean, in real life relationships, the old phrase opposites attract, right?
But the thing is, though, similarities keep.
Right. Opposites attract, but if you find something from there that you can both appreciate, you will stay deeper in affection for each other, because that whole "you complete me" thing, the things that I am not good at, if my potential spouse is good at them and she happens to like a couple of things that I do, it's going to work out a lot better than if we always have the same opinion, we always act the same way.
Right.
Again, something that I can't harp on enough is that with ships, like real life, relationships are relationships.
They certainly are.
A lot of these ideas, as crazy off the wall as they may be, unless they can find some common ground, something that attracts these people together, it's not going to work. Just because you want it desperately to work doesn't mean it's really a good ship.
Right.
You can try.
But, like, if you want to have two characters that are, like, total opposites, what about Steve Rogers and Morgana from Merlin? Actually, I'm kind of shipping that right now.
Okay, hold the phone.
Maybe because
Merlin?
Chris Evans and Katie McGrath are both very, very attractive people.
Hold the phone. When did you start watching Merlin?
I've seen the occasional episode. When I was at this college house with a bunch of roommates, one of them went through the whole show, and I occasionally looked over and like, oh, that looks cool.
Okay, so I guess you did beat me to that show, because I actually got to experience that for the first time while I was here. And I'm like,
look, I know
Morgana's not Katie McGrath,
who also had the worst death by far in Jurassic World. So,
well, there is that. That said, though, I mean, this version of Merlin, which was I want to say it was put out by the BBC.
I believe it was BBC. Yes.
Yeah, because they used a bunch of Great Britain area UK actors and whatnot. Of course, that makes sense. But
and they have
Morgana is not generally portrayed as a similar age to all of. Oh, sorry. I don't need to go too much
also,
into...
King Arthur and Merlin aren't usually the same age either, but they are in this show, so...
Right. Well, because he isn't king yet, kind of a thing.
Right.
But that's what I was just going to say, is that they take some intriguing liberties there. But you know what I've always said about Hollywood, the small screen...
Right.
They tend to have a large passel of people who are extraordinarily good looking to pick from to cast these people. So,
God, Morgana. I watched that. Whenever Morgana was on, my heart went a little aflutter.
A little aflutter. She is very pretty. I will agree with that.
Okay, but anyways.
Anyway, no, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it'd be completely awful.
Like, I know she's a terrible person who tortured people and did dark magic, but I could get over that. Look at her!
Well, okay, in the legend, Morgana is, but I don't think in Merlin, that show... Well, okay, I've only seen season 1, so don't spoil anything for me.
I've seen all of it. She gets worse,
okay.
but she...
But don't spoil it for me!
She gets worse, but in other ways, she gets so much better. Anyway, sorry. I should stop being a creep. I really should stop being a creep.
Why should I not be surprised that she'd probably choose much more revealing clothing if she had this dark turn? That's all I'm going to say.
That's always the trope, isn't it? The good people dressed modestly.
The exactly.
Evil people dressed, like...
Speaking of which, I'm not sure in this universe how Steve Rogers would have any reason to meet Morgana, because their time periods are extraordinarily different.
Okay, here's what happens. On his journey to return all the Infinity Stones at the end of Endgame, one of them goes a little bit awry.
Too far back.
In medieval England.
In this particular universe where Morgana and Merlin and Arthur and...
Hey, isn't King Arthur
all the same age?
The Marvel Universe? Isn't it something to do with how Captain Britain works?
Yes.
Okay, so that's that so somehow the Merlin universe is also links to that. And so Captain America goes there, and then he meets Morgana. I mean, clearly, if it's that thing, it doesn't work out because he goes to
this is
go
the
Peggy
same
anyway.
logic, and this is the same logic how somebody can connect all of the DC universe with Power Rangers because of a shared last name with completely unintentional references.
Oh, that's bad. Anyways, enough about Merlin, and what do you got?
That reference, by the way, there's a ranger whose last name is Grayson, and of course Robin.
Oh, like
first
Dick.
Robin's. Exactly. There you go.
Okay.
And that's the end. All you need is one.
All you
Sometimes
need
they're
is
very
one. Sorry.
Hey, not bad. It takes one, and it can be quite contrived, right?
Right.
Anyways,
Yes,
how
what
do
do
you
you
make
got?
them more appreciated? I mean, oh boy. Theoretically, the best ships aren't fan-conceived.
Right.
I talked about it earlier, but if the show puts characters together thanks to the original author's intent, well, I hope that relationship is good, but, not everybody will be satisfied with that, so obviously they go hog wild.
Right.
Limitations are only what you make for yourself. Something, especially in this day and age, changing someone's sexual preference is, I suppose, means to an end, but probably necessary for a majority of non-canon ships, particularly involving non-hetero characters.
In most ships that I've read, everyone's gay.
Well, it'd almost be easier if you just made the base assumption that everybody becomes bi.
Right. Yeah. Bi probably or
Pan.
or
is the other one,
pansexual. Yeah.
So there are no qualms about suddenly this person's loving girls, even though he's always been loving guys. I was watching. I mentioned what we rip off and talked about Glee. The latest that I've seen, they are heavily building the relationship between this character who has been gay out consistently the whole time, and this girl who, despite that, is falling in love with him.
Well,
So,
that's not going to work. She better get over that.
Exactly. The majority of non-canon ships, you're going to have to change someone's sexual preference or identity to make that work. I mean, you don't have to, by any means. You can simply do what hasn't been done before. I'll try not to talk about too much because, of course, I always bring this up, but there is a document on my computer where I tracked, in the original 3 seasons of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, all of the Rangers in every possible hetero relationship combination, what I'd seen in fan fiction.
Right.
And the moral of the story is that most of them have been done by somebody.
Yeah, I think
if they existed together on the team at the same time, then it's probably been done. Now, if they was without getting into too many details, if somebody from season 1 who is later swapped out for a different character would fall in love with that other character, then you have to change something that happened earlier, and that's why it's fan fiction. But, even those, there aren't too many left.
Right. Well,
because people have gone crazy for their favorite ship.
Right, exactly. Well, and there are some characters that, just like Helen of Troy herself, they are a launcher of 1,000 ships because they have all these... They can end up with all these different characters, but it's with this one person. There's a lot of characters like this, particularly common if there's a show where there's only one token female. They're like, okay, we're going to ship her with everybody.
They're probably not aimed at children for obvious reasons, but there is a specific genre of anime called harem anime.
Right.
And if you're familiar with the term harem,
I know harem anime. It's great.
Well,
yeah,
okay,
gotta
be careful.
I'm assuming
gotta be careful with what you're saying here. But suffice it to say that in the anime, the conflict comes from never choosing which one's best, and so
you just
people,
screw it, we'll get them all.
People, well. I mean, at the risk of sounding reductive and very inappropriate, that's basically what happens. They have this uneasy, status quo where the guy can freely love all of these women, or the woman can love all of the guys. And, fans eat this stuff up. But, for those who are like, oh, but this was obviously the suitable one, they have their own fix.
Yeah, I mean, who has time to choose, That takes too much effort. Who needs that? If you have all these options, just say, screw it, it's all of them.
Yeah. Well, and, attractive people, you know what they say. They're going to appeal to many, but... We're not attractive people.
Listeners, I should specify that I jest. I don't actually support someone being there's too many options.
You don't support polygamy? Yeah. Come on.
I mean, anyway. If it's consensual, then sure. But if it's not, No.
I believe that this would be more closely polyamory anyway, because polygamy is when you actually marry multiple spouses.
Right. Well, like, I mean, like,
Anyway.
as with any relationship, consent is key. So if
Yes,
there's no
that is
consent,
true.
then there's no nothing. I'm a writer, guys.
If you have no consent, you cannot act.
I got it.
Anyways.
If you have no consent, you will not be content.
Oh, well, maybe you wouldn't mind, but the person might. Anyway,
let's
also
not
this
get into
story, this ship story, downplays a lot of elements that make a story successful to converge solely on the one.
Right.
You know, these are not going to have the strongest plots. These are not going to have the most clever settings, because it's not about those as much as it's about you building up this relationship because you want it to exist.
Right, exactly.
But if you're going to pick up some more fans of your work and not just thrown tomatoes from angry ones,
right,
it helps if you pick those characters who have stronger, passionate followings, regardless of the number.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of the clique following. The cult following. There we go. Well, clique following might be a thing too.
Okay.
But the cult following, you know, they're passionate.
Yes.
No matter how few they may be. And if they want to see that character done justice, or they want to also see this relationship done, then they're going to pay attention to your story.
Right.
It also really helps if you do justice to the characters themselves.
Right, exactly.
I get no thrill from seeing a character mercilessly changed just to fit your fic.
Right. No, this character is evil and kills and tortures children and, like, kills everyone, but they have this soft side in this fanfiction.
To go back to Merlin and Morgana in Season 1, shipping Season 1 Morgana and Merlin would be fine, but shipping Season 1 Morgana, who apparently is already the legendary, and I mean that in a bad way, Morgana, is not a great idea. Now, I don't know if she goes full dark, and please, again, I don't need to know right now. I'm planning to watch it.
No, this is exactly what happens.
I asked you not to spoil it for me, you piece of crap. Anyways. But, yes, we just. But if you seriously cannot handle the voice of the character, I'd wholeheartedly recommend you find another ship to sail.
Yeah. I love these nautical buttons.
We've got leagues of them, my friend. Also, it would help if you don't wholesale ignore what the character has done in the source material.
Right.
You know, they won't
I was
forget
with
their
this
first
one
kiss.
person, but the writer dictates I end up with this other person, so I'm just throwing the first person aside.
The almighty plot demands it. No. You won't not you. They won't forget their first kiss just because your self-insert is the hottest new thing on the block suddenly.
Right. Exactly.
You can't ignore years of their personal maturation and growth if you're taking them from that time.
Right.
Now, if you want to change the starting point, then that's a conversation worth exploring. But
right.
If you're taking them from so let's use a longer running sitcom and Big Bang Theory as a random example, and
the one you haven't seen.
The one, well, I've seen bits and pieces of it, but
okay.
I'm gonna butcher this entirely because again I don't know the characters. But instead
I'm very
of ending
intrigued
up
what
with
you're gonna
Sheldon,
say.
no, not Sheldon, Leonard. Instead of ending up with Leonard, Penny ends up with Howard, and this is like season 10.
Yeah, well,
Why?
Considering Howard was already married to Bernadette.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
you know, if you do that from season 10, then all of the growth that you've seen on screen, just ignoring that so that Penny and Howard are like feasibly an item, regardless of Bernadette, regardless of Leonard.
There's actually a canon example of this in Friends.
Okay.
This was something that happened that the fans did not like, and the creators realized, oh no, this is bad, and they quickly dropped it. For a couple seasons, obviously, right,
Chandler Monica.
No, this is not Chandler Monica. So, obviously, the big sorry, I'm trying to think. The big relationship of the series is Ross and Rachel, right?
Well, they certainly have an on and off thing going.
Right,
that much
right.
Even I know.
But so they got together, then they broke up, and then it's been like ship teasing like crazy.
But I want her back.
Right. But then and like it even extends to the fact that like they have a fling, I guess is a word to say, and then Rachel gets pregnant and they have a kid together. But as they're taking care of the kid, at this point Rachel is actually living with Joey because Chandler and Monica are on the other side of the apartment, and
they've taken it over for themselves now.
Right, and so
presumably.
Rachel decided... At first, Rachel lived with Phoebe, and it's a long story. But anyways, now she lives with Joey. And Joey starts falling for Rachel. And...
Ooh, boy.
And it's really awkward, and people did not
Raising
like it.
someone else's kid. Yeah, no, that has no potential to go nuclear.
And then once the kid is
Right.
born, they have this thing, like later on the kid is born the next season, they have this thing where Rachel has this dream about Joey, and now she's attracted to Joey. It's very forced, and clearly meant to just add drama to the whole Ross and Rachel will they won't
Sitcoms! Creating drama where
Right.
there is none since time immemorial.
they. And like... And so then they get together at the end of season 9, and then season 10 they start out together, but then they break up within 3 episodes. And this is a storyline in Friends that almost every fan universally hates because it doesn't work, and there's no reason for it. They had to force it so bad. It was clearly just forced just to add like more drama to what was going on.
Well, and as if there wasn't enough.
Well, like. Well, they did do a good thing with it. Where, like,
my mind.
What?
Something that comes to my mind, and this is a general blanket statement in reality, not just sitcom, but when you have friends that you're so close with that relationships tend to be a bad idea.
Well, they actually bring that up, and actually, this is one thing that did work. That they did do that worked. When the way they broke up was like they tried to kiss and they tried to like have their night together, but it would seem too awkward, and then Joey asked Chandler. And this is actually a good line, I think. Joey asked Chandler, was that how it was with Monica at first? Did it ever feel weird with her? And then he thought about it, and he said, no. In fact, it felt more like, why weren't we doing this all along? Why haven't we done this before? And that's when
because
Joey...
it didn't feel like that, he realized it wasn't right.
They realized it wasn't right, and then they broke up. And then it was promptly forgotten about, and...
Well, that's the biggest sign that the writers are like, we need a mulligan on that because
right, exactly.
they forgot about it.
Right. Anyways.
But like in reality as well, when you have such a close friendship, there are some friendships that can stand being in and out of a relationship.
Right.
I'd argue a lot of friendships aren't. There are plenty of friendships that, if you take that next step developmentally into being an item, that if that item goes sour, then
it can ruin the friendship.
Sour.
Yeah.
The whole thing goes sour.
Yeah, that's and like as someone who is friends with a lot of girls, and I'm comfortable with that because like we've said before, I've raised by a bunch of sisters. I'm very, very good at seeing girls as just friends, and listeners can notice when a lot of the times when we've had guest hosts, they've been girls, like Christina, both Christinas, Lexi,
Sydney, yeah.
Yeah, they're all friends, and yeah, like if anything happened with any of them, it would be weird. So yeah, because they're good friends of mine. So
yeah.
Plus, one of them, the two Christinas are married. So
well, I mean.
Not to each other,
listeners. We can never get their names, in the right orientation at the same time. But that's a different.
Anyways, all right. Well, back to stories. With shipping, you got to keep this in mind when doing shipping stuff. Like, do you really want these two characters who are friends to keep going? And I guess it could be interesting to explore how that relationship would work if they decided to go the extra step, and then how they deal with it. That could be interesting.
It could be, but is that really a shipping fic, or is that dealing with the aftermath?
It depends on if the relationship works or not.
And that's something else that's worth talking briefly.
Yes.
Is a ship fic confined to just the courtship dating, or should it also include the fallout? Should that be, choosing eternity, getting divorced, breaking up?
Well, I think it depends on the writer and what they want to do.
It also depends on the characters, I bet.
Yeah. Anyways.
So, like last time when we did crossovers, we're gonna just do a couple of further questions. We've normally we take lots of copious notes and promptly ignore all of them and throw it all back in a handbasket, but we do have very, very few notes for this one. In fact, we don't have any notes for this one. So professional, right?
Which is funny because we recorded this one separately from the other three.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We could have had more notes, but who has the time? You know?
Yeah, who has the time? All of those hours watching. Anyway, so I guess I'll go ahead and read the questions. Let's you go first, and I'll just follow you up with it.
Right.
What potentially draws someone to a particular ship, and how could they make it interesting for their readers?
I think, in a sort of rebellious sort of way, if these characters have been shown why they couldn't work, or they've talked about in the story why they couldn't work, that makes it a freaking, like, gold mine for like, money-lusting, or I guess ship-lusting ship writers, because, especially, like, okay, I know we talked about Bionicle a lot in this set.
Of course.
But I'm going to bring it up again.
They
have,
go ahead.
The story writers of Bionicle, back when it was a thing, confirmed there is no romance, and we've talked about, like, how it works, you know, the whole, like,
continuation of life thing, yes.
Yeah, they die, and then when someone dies, another thing gets rebuilt by the Red Star.
Send the mask back to the Red Star furnace, I mean.
Right, yeah, so, so there's no relationship, there's no romance in Bionicle. Has that stopped ship writers?
Nope.
No.
Jalahali, anyone?
If anything, that's made them more like.
It's encouraged them.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the thing with people who are desperate to write these fics. Nothing will stop them from trying.
Right.
And nothing will stop them from thinking that it will succeed. But like we said already, not every relationship is actually conducive to success.
Right.
Just like reality. Sorry to burst your bubble here.
Oh, no, come on. I like to live in the nice bubble that, like, oh, if I'm with someone and I like someone and we get together, it'll definitely work out and there will be no problems.
Well, considering it requires the courage to actually, you know, take that by the horns and ask that person,
nope.
Then yeah, there's already a problem.
Listeners, relationships
require
work. Line. It's not all puppies and rainbows.
Sorry, let me just have one more PSA for all of our guys listening to this podcast. When you have managed to get a girl to agree to be in a relationship with you, or a guy, whatever your fancy. So obviously, this advice could go for women too. I'm sorry,
that's fine.
That.
Yeah.
Anyway,
come on, it's 2019.
I'm aware. Might be they, for all we know.
Yes.
Anyhow.
Yes, your advice.
Was going to say that once somebody is decided to be in a relationship with you, share that with you. The job of making them feel adored, the job of quote unquote chasing them, never stops.
Exactly. It's not just like, oh yeah, I've won them. Now
I
don't have to worry
my prize.
About it.
Here is
they're
my
not
trophy.
A prize. Like they're.
No, this is not something that you should do.
Right.
Anyway, ship fix should also be the same. I tend to agree that when you have people that say they can't, that despite the odds, it's more rewarding when they do.
Right.
Saying that, there might be a dang good reason why they can't really work out, and everybody else is willing to notice this, and people are ignoring this for a hot second and then regretting it later.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah, these two characters, they can't work out, but they're both so attractive, so
they're both A-list models. Of course they'll work together.
Celebrity marriages, they never last, do they?
And just like shotgun weddings.
Quote
anyway,
from Shrek. Donkey knew what he was talking about.
Donkey knew what he was talking about a lot of the time, that's for sure.
Anyways.
Speaking of ships, though, and Shrek and Donkey, which I can't remember seeing shipped, but I'm sure somebody has done it somewhere.
Somebody, surely.
That,
Shrunky.
You know, what draws someone to a particular ship? I mean, obviously, it starts with your fascination with this character. Now, Is that character somebody from the canon? Is that some character somebody from your mind? I don't know, but their fascination with this character is going to draw them in. And so, try and lean into that a little bit.
Right.
You choosing a character that somebody else also loves. So do that character justice. How can you make it interesting? I mean,
it's up to you, really.
Personally the type of writer that likes making sure there is a progression. We don't start going 100 miles an hour straight from zero. Cars have to build up to it.
Yes.
Same thing with relationships.
Exactly.
You can't go straight to home plate if you've never even started walking out of the batter's box.
Ain't that the truth?
And so you have to give it that time. You have to give it that progression. And so making it more interesting, I think, comes down to how good you are at showing the reader the path. You give them a yellow brick road to follow, and the Emerald City at the end is these characters actually working.
Right.
When nobody else assumed they would. And because you have done the work, you have consistently thought it out, that the logic makes sense, and even if they don't agree with your choice, that they believe you made a good one.
Right. But, conversely, to keep going on, what are some things like to avoid, though, in shipping fics?
Yeah. I think that...
I mean, obviously, I think, like, abuse and, like, that kind of...
Oh, boy.
Yeah, like, don't make it like, oh, like, this person, beats them, but it's okay, because they're in love. Like, nope.
I mean, don't romanticize awful things to justify them staying together. I do think that there is something to be mined from, if there's an abusive relationship, what does that person do? I don't mean to keep going back to Glee, but there's a very good storyline with a character who had an abusive husband.
Right.
And they actually made a subplot of this.
I mean, no, it works. It makes good drama, but I'm just...
this character get out. But, that's not really the ship.
Yeah, no, because the point of a shipping fic is to be like, oh, these characters, this is them together because I want them together. And if them together involves abuse...
That's not the ship anyway. That ship should sink.
There is a story to be had if the main subject is an abusive relationship, but instead of it being about the ship, it's about how does this character deal with it and how do they potentially get out of it. That could be a compelling story, but that's not a shipping fic.
I was about to say that's an actual full-fledged fic, not just a ship.
Right.
Because earlier I said that a ship ignores the other bits to focus on the characters, the relationship between them, right? So a shipping fic, if you get too far from that, once you have reached 100 miles an hour or home plate or whatever metaphor you want to use, once you've reached it, it probably needs to finish.
Right.
Let somebody else decide how to deconstruct your world. Let somebody else worry about the drama. Or maybe not just write a ship. Maybe write a whole dang fic about it.
Right.
Don't make your scope too big.
Exactly. That makes sense.
I mean, yeah, it's nice to have an aircraft carrier, but at that point, it's not just a shipping fic expressly. It could have other things to go with it. So, there is that.
Okay.
But
finally,
yes, don't romanticize good stuff. I'm sorry. That just... Excuse me. Wow. Misspoken. Don't romanticize bad stuff happening to good people.
I think you should romanticize good stuff.
Yeah, that probably was worth it.
All right, so finally, we got one more question here. I mean, we had more, but I feel like we need to wrap it up. The last one wasn't really anything big. But what
are your favorite ships?
Yes.
And why?
Well, I'm a really, really big Stoney shipper, or Steve and Tony from the MCU. Maybe not so much in a relationship.
Captain Bucky?
Maybe not so much in a romantic relationship, but just their drama with each other, their platonic or their partner relationship with each other. It's just so compelling, and I just want to see more of it.
Yeah, too much for that. So much for that theory.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. But
Spoiler alert.
No, to be fair, I already spoiled Endgame by revealing that Captain America uses the the time travel to return
yeah.
the stone, so never mind. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter at this point.
No, it doesn't. Anyway.
But in terms of romantic,
it's hard, you
Yeah.
know. Like, the things, there are so many out there, and of those, you have a couple of buckets. You have the buckets that were recommended by the original creator. You have the buckets that are done but aren't done very well because you've got amateurs doing them. And then you have the ones that, like, you just probably aren't aware of. And then what's left over is this tiny little pile that you can hold in your entire hand and be like, totally forget what the heck the name is because you've got so many other things rolling through your mind, like generally happens with us.
Right. Exactly. Isn't that the truth?
Isn't that the truth? Anyways, one of the things I was thinking about before we started recording this today was I know that the canon was one way, but this particular ship, I've never done anything with it, but I think it is actually a decent one to explore, and that is Harry Hermione.
Right. Yeah, I think we definitely talked about that before, right? Yeah.
We have talked about that before because when I seem to remember when we were doing Why is Romance So Hard to Write?
Well, you were Christina Island.
I said we. I was involved.
You were. You called in the middle of it. We included you. So
yeah, I was involved. It's right there.
Yeah, and we talked about how, like, you know, while I don't think Harry and Hermione work together for different reasons, I don't think Ron and Hermione work either, even though that's the canon one. Like, not as much that doesn't work, I just don't buy it.
I do like the Harry Hermione ship. I think they're both competent, and I don't know if it would have really worked out together or not, but a shipping fic isn't about exploring, like, 100% of the time they're guaranteed to work. It's just I think this would be fun, and I try it.
Right.
Which is why so many of those aforementioned career
you're
fanfic writers
Harmony shippers, whatever they call it, I think.
Anyway, no, I'm kidding.
Hermione.
Anyway, Hermione. But, like, you know, it's... Why is that my favorite ship? Well, Harry Potter is probably one of the biggest, like, as it happened, pop culture things that I was in on.
Of course. Yeah, you were... unlike, you know, we talked about how, like, you always go to
Usually I'm late to the party. Harry Potter was generally the exception.
You go to things a little late. Yeah, but with Harry Potter, yeah, you were there along with the ride like everyone else, with everyone else, at the same time as everyone else. So.
Exactly. So it was a big thing. There are probably several other things. I was trying to avoid mentioning Power Rangers for much of this episode. I think I did a good job, but there's one.
I think I did a better job of not mentioning Bionicle more than you did for not mentioning.
You did. But compared to the last few episodes, I'm sure I've talked about it.
Right.
Anyway, the one relationship that defined Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was Tommy Kimberly. Right. The problem was that when Kimberly's character was written off the show, Tommy eventually found a new love because the off-screen Kimberly sent him the least personal letter I can think of and broke up with him.
Oh, that's how they wrote her out.
No, that's not how they wrote her out, but that's how they wrote off the relationship so that they could put a supermodel-looking person.
Dumb.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's smart, but this is the thing. Like, because Kimberly broke Tommy's heart that way, I have little problem shipping Jason and Kimberly, who I really wish would have gotten together, actually came back in the Turbo movie as the two of them. Not as an item, but the two of them came back. And so it's just like, ha ha ha, I've got my fuel, let's go. As to why I like them, you know, those two were there from the beginning. Right. And they had a very good relationship. It was a great friendship that, you know, maybe it could have become a good romance, but then Tommy came in and Kimberly fell for him. So
right. Anyways,
what do you got, Donald?
Well, I've got one more, but then after that, I think we better start wrapping things up.
Yep.
This isn't Bionicle, but this is another Lego thing, an old Lego thing. I remember when I was younger with some of my other childhood friends, I really, really liked Lego Rock Raiders. Do you remember Rock Raiders at all?
Very little.
It's like, you know, they were these geologists basically underneath an alien planet, and they were getting crystals and fighting rock monsters and such. There are these two characters named... They all have these different characters, but there are these two characters named Doc and Jet. And in the cutscenes of this video game and in other media, they were always together. They were always with one another. And so I shipped the hell out of them. Like, there was no
Back in the days when you were making Lego movies, even? Wow.
Oh, I didn't have any of the sets, so I never made Lego movies. I was just talking about based on the media that they had together with them.
I'm referring to when you were making movies with a crocodile as opposed
Oh
to
yes, no, that. Yeah, no, I didn't make a movie about
that
Doc
era of your life.
Right. I didn't make a movie about Doc. I didn't make a epic romance about Doc and Jet. No, but anyways, I'm sure most listeners have no idea what I'm talking about, but the ones that do are probably very happy. So,
well, and again, passionate, no matter the number.
Anyways.
So, yeah, that's about ships. This is the final episode of our set about fan fiction. Obviously, there's way more to be said about fan fiction. So, if you'd like to, ask us questions or whatnot, we do actually have a couple of things for reading the fan mail today.
It's always exciting when we get fan mail.
Exactly. We did. But anyway, let me do the fan mail first, and then we'll talk about how the rest of you can get in touch with us.
Yes.
From listener Shuma T in Japan, who
nice.
Thanks so much for sending an English email. I can translate Japanese, but
it's always good to go the extra effort. So
yeah, he wanted to know how many listeners it would take expressing interest for there to be a YouTube account.
Oh, that is a very interesting question, huh? I'll have to think about it.
To quote his email, and I will explain the typos that he made too. You keep talking about this channel, which is the way they would say channel, so
right.
that's just a typo. But we have heard nothing yet. Why not? How many of use, which I think he meant to say us,
right?
Just added an E. Would it take for Donald to make that? We love YouTuber in Japan. YouTuber, by the way, is somebody obviously who's on YouTube.
We are not YouTubers, but we could be if we.
We could be. But what's the number on that? I don't know. However, the point being that they kind of refer to it as YouTube, just as a blanket statement, whether it's the actual site or it's a certain person. So
yes, of course.
Also a typo, I think. Anyhow.
Well, Adam, Mr. Shumati, it'll happen someday. I guarantee that. That's all I can guarantee.
First, listeners.
That's sometime between now
and later, but
between now and the heat death of the universe, we will have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, if we don't die before the heat death of the universe.
But
anyway.
So,
I also wanted to shout out listener Dan J. from the U.S., who did send us a question, but requested us not to read it on the air. We do really appreciate the email, however.
Of course.
And to answer your question, Dan, you'll just have to wait and see.
Was it the same question? Was it the same YouTube?
No, it was not the same question. I'll give you that.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that I kind of took care of this email all on my own. And
of course. Well, no, yeah, of course. Okay, this one isn't so much an email, but it is feedback I've gotten from someone.
Oh, yeah.
This is from Amberly, and she says, I love you as a person, Matt, but your show is cringe. To which I say, thank you. It really means a lot.
Wow, that's a very high testament to your character. I believe Donald is the reference in that, not me, right?
Yeah,
the show being cringy. Wow, that's a wound. That's a wound to the heart.
I like to think we are charmingly cringe.
Yeah, sure, charmingly cringy. Is there a portmanteau like adorkable to use here? I don't think so. Anyway,
strangely.
For those of you who'd like to get in contact with us and have us read your stuff on the air, please get in touch with us. That's Matt D at MatthewDonaldCreator.com. 2 T's in the word Matt in both instances, but please specify which host. You can use your own email system to that address, or you can go to the Matthew Donald Creator website, where most of these episodes are available for personal listen as well.
Yes, I've been trying to be much. I used to be kind of
lackadaisical about that.
Let's say not punctual about putting them up. But now I'm putting them up more. So trying to keep.
We didn't need an email for that fan feedback to reach us.
Right. But yeah, so if you want to follow me personally though. You can follow me at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, at Matthew Donald 64 on Twitter, and Matthew Donald 64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because, I've done the math here, the chances of me ever getting a girlfriend, speaking of shipping, is 64, ! To 1. And that's not 64 to 1, but 64 factorial. So, which is, in case you don't know, I mean, you know, but in case our listeners don't know, 64 times 63 times 62, etc.
All the way down to 2, because obviously 1 would just be itself.
Yeah, but you want me to read out the number that this is?
Not particularly, but I'm sure you're going to do it.
I certainly am. It's 126 octovigintillion, 886 septinvigintillion, 932 sesvigintillion, 185 quinquadvigintillion, 184 quattorovigintillion, 164 tresvigintillion, 103 duovigintillion, 433 unvigintillion, 389 vigintillion, 335 novemdecillion, 161 octodecillion, 480 septendecillion, 802 sedidecillion, 865 quinquadecillion, 516 quattrodecillion, 174 tridecillion, 545 duodecillion, 192 undecillion, 198 decillion, 801 nonillion, 894 octillion, 375 septillion, 204 sextillion, 704 quintillion, 230 quadrillion, 400 trillion to 1 chances of getting a girlfriend.
And approximately 500 trillion seconds figuring out the spelling and pronunciation of all of those names. Got it.
I know things. I'm smart.
You're not a brony. You know things.
And I'm not a mathematician, but I know things.
Sure.
Anyways, all right.
We'll see. But that's it for our fanfic set. We'll be back with more next week on more stuff. Until then, thanks for keeping into the Writ Wit, the show where us two twits talk about writting.
I'm Matt Donald.
I'm Matt David. And until next time, keep on writing. We'll see you soon.
Keep on writing. Bye.
Bye. The Writ Wit.